Hello everyone, welcome back. Tonight I want to do a nice writing video and a little bit of literary analysis of two books that will help us write about ourselves. Hopefully in a way that will bring us some sort of recognition of our own self and the way we think about ourselves. So we're going to work with the third person limited. This is a type of point of view where you really focus on actions of characters and you don't think at all about their interiority or what's going on in their mind. So if you're interested in practicing writing, I encourage you to get a pen or a pencil. I'll get my pen. Open it up. Oops, sorry. Get my pen here. So get a pen or a pencil and a nice pad of paper like I have here. And we'll go ahead and write right after we read our introductory material. The two books we're going to look at tonight are Spring and All by William Carlos Williams, who was an Imagist poet, wrote after the First World War, and also a modernist poet. So he writes about images, the look of things, attempting to capture as best he can how the present feels, how the present looks. And we're going to hear from him about how he thinks about writing and its purpose in our lives. So we'll start with this. Then we're going to turn to Elizabeth Hardwick, Sleepless Nights, and read a little bit about her life, because this is autofiction, which is one of my favorite genres. It's a peculiar genre in that this is a novel, but it feels like it's a memoir. And it's like autobiography mixed with fiction. And what this genre tends to be like is like a great patchwork of things. It's like as if you took your day and you thought about everything you think during the day and you put it into a book. And so in my version of this book, I might go about like, wow, I taught all day and then I did a video on this, and I talk a great deal about what I did a video on. But a lot of it would be, I don't know how to say it would be like pulling from different authors and putting in quotes from different authors and using that quote to jump to another memory inspired by that quote. And it's very stream of consciousness. But it's also very based on your mind, but also integrates fiction. So it's a fascinating genre that we'll look at today when we read these books. Okay, so we're going to start with Spring and All. So I'm going to bring my camera down so you can really see. I'm going to try and get it so you can look at the words as I read them. Okay. Let's see if we can get Spring and All. Okay, let's turn the camera down. I really would like to get it so that you're over my shoulder. And I've been trying to do this a few times, but the problem is I won't be able to actually see the camera so well. So let's try it like this. And see if this works. Can you see it all right? I suppose. Okay, so let's start with Spring and All. And this is a hard book to read, so I'm going to kind of describe it to us a little bit. All right, let's read. If anything of moment results, so much the better, and so much the more likely will it be that no one will want to see it. There is a constant barrier between the reader and his consciousness of immediate contact with the world. Right? Immediate contact with the world means the way that we live, the life that we live immediately. Immediacy. It's still hard to capture the immediate because it's so quickly gone, right? If there is an ocean, it is here, or rather the whole world is between. Yesterday, tomorrow, Europe, Asia, Africa, all things removed and impossible, the tower of the church at Seville, the Parthenon. do they mean when they say, "I do not like your poems. You have no faith whatever. You seem neither to have suffered nor, in fact, to have felt anything very deeply." So this is a critique of William Carlos Williams' very specific type of poetry, which is that it seems emotionless and that he focuses only on the image of things. Perhaps we should look at one before we continue reading so you get an idea of that. The Red Wheelbarrow is probably the most famous, but I should pick one from the book, I think. Let's see if we can find a really good one. Let's see. I think, let's see. Petals aslant, darkened with mauve, red wherein whirls, petal lays its glow upon petal, round flame-grey throats, petals radiant with transpiercing light, contending above the leaves, reaching up their modest green. Well, that's one that we could use, but I think, oops, I lost one of my notes. I don't want to lose that. I think the best one's perhaps here. Yeah. Let's look at this one. This is a good images poem. The red paper box, hinged with cloth, is lined inside and out with imitation leather. So he's just describing the look of a thing, right? Nothing else. It feels emotionless, and yet it's really not. It is the sun, the table with dinner on it, for these are the same. Its 2-inch trays have engineers that convey glue to airplanes, or for old ladies that darn socks, paper clips, and red elastics. What is the end to insects that suck gummed labels? For this is eternity. Through its dial we discover transparent tissue on a spool. The stars are round, a cardboard with a tin edge, and a ring to fasten them to a trunk for the vacation. Right, so you can think about, well, what is that poem really about? Well, it's about a red paper box. It is about the sun on the table and all the uses of table. It's really about life, right? About old ladies darning socks and those who make little model airplanes, kind of cheekily called engineers. And it's about the little insects that get stuck to the labels and where they go when they're gone, right? And it's this eternity. Through its dial we discover the transparent tissue on a spool. Is it that eternity is upon this table, but the stars are round a cardboard with a tin edge, and a ring to fasten them with a trunk for the vacation? So there's no focus at all on the interior. There's no fantasy to this. I think that's the biggest thing. There's also no rhyme, and there's no rhythm, right? It's entirely free verse. No rhyme, no rhythm. Short, terse little stanzas. As you can see, very short, terse stanzas. There's no beauty to it, and yet I find them to be remarkably beautiful in their focus on the mundane and making the mundane a light. For what is the end to insects that suck gummed labels? Where do they go? So, those are the sort of books that these critics are having trouble with, and he's writing to those critics now. And he's going to tell us why he writes this way before we give it a go writing that way. Okay? There is nothing appealing in what you say, but on the contrary, the poems are positively repellent. Do I need to get closer? Positively repellent. Now, can you hear me still? Yeah. positively repellent. They are heartless, cruel. They make fun of humanity. They do. It was a bit cheeky. What in God's name do you mean? Are you a pagan? Have you no tolerance for human frailty? Rhyme you may perhaps take out, but rhythm, why, there is nothing in your work whatever. Is this what you call poetry? It is the very antithesis of poetry. It is anti-poetry. It is the annihilation of life upon which you are bent. Poetry that used to go hand in hand with life. Poetry that interpreted our deepest promptings. Poetry that inspired, that led us forward to new discoveries, new depths of tolerance, new heights of exaltation. You moderns, it is the death of poetry that you are accomplishing. No, I cannot understand this work. You have not yet suffered a cruel blow from life. When you have suffered, you will write differently. And so he's saying here that his critics say, why, you've taken all the beauty, all the creation, all the, I suppose you could say, the artifice out of poetry. The rhythm is artifice, the rhyme is artifice, at least it is to him. It is a way of making a beautiful fantasy, you'll see him say, of life, rather than depicting it as it is. Perhaps this noble apostrophe means something terrible for me. Apostrophe is addressing someone that is not there, so these people are not speaking directly to him. I am not certain, but for the moment I interpret it to say, you have robbed me. God, I am naked. What shall I do? You have shown me, he is saying, exactly as I am, absent of all that I wish I was and all that I could be. And that's the big thing. I want to write that down because that's the sort of thing we're going to do today. We're going to show ourselves poetry shows me as I am. Can you see it? I don't know. Poetry shows you as who I. It shows me as who I am. Not, or rather, naked, in the fact that it is without who I could be or wish to be, without dreams, without memories, just the surface of life, no longer obscured by thoughts of what it might be tomorrow. Because when we think about now, I think we're often thinking about how we might improve now. And so that's sort of what he's saying there, that my poetry has made you feel naked because it has taken away the things that have made you feel safe in your life and clothed. Well, you don't have to really look at now if you're always thinking about tomorrow, do you? So that's the brilliance of it, really, of what he's saying. Okay, so let's keep reading now. God, I am naked, what shall I do? By it they mean that when I have suffered, provided I have not done so as yet, I too shall run for cover, that I too shall seek refuge in fantasy, rhyme and rhythm, fantasy, that we might find safety in poetry rather than the truth. But could there be safety in the truth, perhaps? And mind you, I do not say that I will not. To decorate my age. But today it is different. Now here is a quote that I really love. And this is the quote that's going to guide our reading or our writing today. The reader knows himself as he was 20 years ago, and he has also in mind a vision of what he would be some day. Oh, someday. But the thing he never knows and never dares to know is what he is at the time, as he is at the exact moment that he is. And this moment is the only thing in which I am at all interested. Ergo, who cares for anything I do, and what do I care? Right? So all he cares about here, the reader knows himself as he was 20 years ago, and he has a vision of what he would be, but he is very rarely capable of saying who he is at the moment. Here, sitting in the chair, filming a video about William Carlos Williams for you. He doesn't know so much about that exact moment he is, and that is the thing he writes the poem about. Sorry, people got it kind of loud, so I had to stop for a moment. Okay, so let's get back to it here. And we'll continue reading. Now, the goal of the writing exercise today is to do what this quote is asking us to do. It's to think about of ourselves entirely in the present. Let me see if I can get this back to how it was before. There. To think about ourselves in the present, devoid of what we are 20 years ago and what will be in the future. And to write about that, and that's very difficult, and the best way I can think to do that is to just get rid of interiority and think about the surfaces of things. We might think about surfaces as being, what would we say, like, you're just gonna come over, surfaces as being, well, the surface, what is the word I'm looking for, that the surfaces are, not vapid, but they're just a piece of the thing. That the real truth of the matter is on the inside, right? That the surfaces are shallow. That's the word I was looking for. The surfaces are shallow, and it's the inside, all the things we're thinking, that are really the important thing. But really, what matters in the world and what happens in the world is the things we do. And the things we do are what we do with our bodies, right? And our actions and the way that we move little objects in the world. And so thinking about the way that we change our settings and we interact with our settings, almost like we're actors as we write, is, I think, a very good mental exercise. So that's what we're going to do. It's going to help us think about not just the present, but not just the past and the future all the time, which we can get caught up in, but rather what's happening in the now. Okay, and how can what's happening, even when it's probably a little boring, can it be really fascinating? Okay, I love my fellow creature. Jesus, how I love him. Endways, sideways, front ways, and all the other ways. But it doesn't exist, neither does she. I do, but in a bastardly sort of way. To whom then am I addressed? To the imagination. So he says, I'm writing to the imagination. In fact, to return upon my theme for the time, nearly all writing up to the present, if not all art, has been especially designed to keep up the barrier between sense and the vaporous fringe, which distracts the attention from its agonized approaches to the moment. So let's break that down. I don't fully understand it. That's what I love about, reading with you guys, is because I don't always know what this says. So let's see. All art has been designed to keep up the barrier between sense and the vaporous fringe which distracts the attention from its agonized approaches to the moment. It has always been a search for the beautiful illusion. Very well, I am not in search of the beautiful illusion. So I guess it's saying art is designed to keep the barrier between sense on one side, perhaps good sense, and on the other side, vaporous fringe. And I wonder what the vaporous fringe is. Is that the mundane? Is it meant to put a barrier between that which we wish to see and all of the mundane on the other side? Or is it something else? If you have an interpretation of this line, do tell me. But I do think it's been a search for a beautiful illusion, so it's sense on one side is to capture the beauty of life and to keep the rest of it on the other side, that art is a barrier between reality. In a way, maybe. I don't know. And if when I pompously announce that I am addressed to the imagination, you believe that I thus divorce myself from life and so defeat my own end, I reply, to refine, to clarify, to intensify that eternal moment in which we alone live, there is but a single force, the imagination. This is its book. I myself invite you to read and see. I think this is like a children's story to artists. It's written that way, like a little children's book. And it's very small, like a children's book. I think what makes it like a children's book is how frank it is, and how it says things that you might think were obvious, but really aren't. And so that's what he's going to do next. We're going to read this next, which I might co-opt this message because I like it. Right, he says here, where is it? In the imagination we are from henceforth, so long as you read, locked in a fraternal embrace, the classic caress of author and reader. We are one. Whenever I say I mean also you. And so together, as one, we shall begin. And so we, together as one, will become author and reader together. He goes on to say, O meager time, so fat in everything imaginable. That's a nice antithesis. It means that these are lean times, times in lack, while we have everything we could ever want. And we have to wonder why, the more and more we gain, we still feel so starving. And I think it has something to do with what he says on chapter 8, whatever's going on here. Here's his cheekiness, you see, he's put the chapter upside down, or backwards rather. But let's think a little bit about this. Here he says, he tells the story of a morning, but it's a morning on the final day before we arrive. Okay, so let me bring this a bit closer so you can see the book. And we'll talk about the final day before we arrive. Here it is. Okay. Only a day is left, one miserable day before the world comes into its own. Thus, weary of life, in view of the great consummation which awaits us, tomorrow we rush among our friends, congratulating ourselves upon the joy soon to be. And what joy is it? Thoughtless of evil, we crush out the marrow of those about us with our heavy cars as we go happily from place to place. We're so unconcerned with the people around us because tomorrow is the day that everything will finally be finished. It seems that there is not time enough in which to speak the full of our exaltation. Everything is soon to be finished. Only a day is left, one miserable day before the world comes into its own. Let us hurry. Why bother for this man or that? In the offices of the great newspapers a mad joy reigns as they prepare the final extras. Rushing about, men bump into each other, the whirring of presses. How funny it seems. All thought of misery has left us. Why should we care? Children laughingly fling themselves under the wheels of the streetcars. Airplanes crash gaily to the earth. Someone has written a poem. So this is odd, right? Because it's very ironic. It's very happily talking about the end of the world. And what he's suggesting here, I think, is that the entire world has grown weary of life because we're always focusing and moving and progressing forward, plodding forward, and we're always imagining the future and missing the past. And that seems to be the stance that we're in. Oh, miss the past, imagine the future. Miss the past, imagine the future. And really, we'd all like to be done with that, I think. And we think about this like, oh, isn't this project over? Can't we be done? Can't we say it's nice? Do we have to keep fighting? Do we always have to keep protecting and building and then protecting what we build and then destroying what someone else built because it's threatening to what I've built. When does this whole dance just end? And oftentimes we can't imagine an end as a change in perspective. No, that would be too hard. We imagine that the only end is some great destruction to the world. This is how William Carlos Williams calls it. The final and self-inflicted holocaust has been all for love, as sweet as love, that together the human race, yellow, black, brown, red, and white, agglutinated into one enormous soul. Right? That the only way we can ever think about finally being finished, being done, having achieved what we've really wanted, is for all of us to be dead. There's no end to it until we're really all gone. And then finally we might be relieved. So I think that's what he means by meager times to fatten everything imaginable. But isn't there a better way than doing that? And I hope that in this poetry we might find a better way than just hoping for the collapse of things, because we're all so tired. And maybe one of the ways we can be less tired is by realizing how wonderful the present really is, and how fat we really are with all the greatness of the present and everything that's going on. And so this is a poem that we're going to experiment with today. This is one of his poems that focuses entirely on the present. And you'll see how beautiful it is, and it shows us the beauty of life in a way that we don't want to move forward and don't want to move back. We'd really like to just stay with this, which is here right now. Okay? In passing with my mind on nothing in the world but the right of way I enjoy on the road by, virtue of the law I saw, an elderly man who smiled and looked away. To the north past a house, a woman in blue, who was laughing and leaning forward to look up into the man's half-averted face, and a boy of 8 who was looking at the middle of the man's belly at a watch chain. The supreme importance of this nameless spectacle sped me by them without a word. Why bother where I went? For I went spinning on the 4 wheels of my car along the wet road until I saw a girl with one leg over the rail of a balcony. This question, why bother where I went? It doesn't matter where I'm going. I think that's the beautiful, beautiful question. Why bother where I went? And we might think of this in our life. Why bother where I went or where I'm going? Look at all the beauty that I saw on my way. It's really the cliche. It's not the destination, it's the journey. When you focus so much on that destination, why it becomes so negative that in his rather humorous way, he says, if you focus on the destination, we all become so negative that we start to celebrate mass annihilation. Which is kind of absurd. You can see that he's very hyperbolic and silly and ironic, which is what makes William Carlos Williams such a treasure. But this is what we're going to do right now. We're going to think about our lives and a single day in our lives entirely in the third person limited. So I'm going to write my day as honestly as I can, just on the actions. So that's what we're going to do now. Alright, so let me turn the camera down so you can see just my writing. And you, if you want to go ahead and get some paper that you might want to work on too, you can go ahead and do that. Let's flip this open. I do want to talk briefly a bit more about the poem. I felt I went a little bit too fast through it. In passing with my mind on nothing in the world but the right of way, right? His simple mind, the right of way in the road, right? All he's thinking about is how do I not crash my bike? I enjoy on the road by virtue of the law, right? So he's saying that I have the right of way on the road. Thank you, law. It's very simple. I saw. Rhymes very pretty. An elderly man who smiled and looked away. Do we see anything of his interiority? No. Anything of his hopes or disappointments? No. Only that he smiled briefly and looked away. And that sight took us to that woman in blue. And admire that the boy of 8, he describes his height by saying where the boy looked, which was at the man's belly, at a watch chain. That was probably pretty fascinating to him. And so all of life is a series of glances and actions and small interruptions. The small beauties of life. Right here. The girl with one leg over the rail of a balcony. So now we're going to do 2 forms of exercise. But of course I've lost my pen. Oh, here it's in the book. I want you to write, to think about your day, but to think about it only in actions. And for now we're going to put it in the 3rd person, because I think it helps yourself see yourself on the outside. Okay? So I'm going to begin like so, and you can write with me. The alarm goes off at 5. A hand stretches from the sheets and switches it off. Okay, back to it. I'm sorry, it's very loud here at night when everyone's going to sleep, so everyone makes a bit of noise. Anyway, let me read what I've got. The alarm goes off at 5, a hand stretches from the sheets and switches it off. The hand then finds an arm. It's a bit silly to write this way. An arm wrapped in blankets. And the fingers search it. The arm quickly disappears. Beneath the duvet. The alarm goes off again. Again. The woman switches it off, sits up, and looks at the hidden form beside her. Sorry. She leans over to find his face. And reveals it by pulling back the corner of the sheet. He frowns, burrows deeper. She sighs, stares in the darkness, then turns on the light. A moan from the mound. The faucet is on in the kitchen for coffee. She waits, phone in hand, and does not move. With coffee, she returns and observes the mound. But then undresses, pants off in the bedroom, shirt off in the hallway. Then naked, she starts the shower. A video plays, some semblance of the news. A cat, another cat, coming from all angles. Again goes a meow from this window. This window. And scratch from that door. The child? No child. Empty bed. She has gone to school. Alright, and that's the morning. And I guess I'll just keep going. Let's see. She has gone to school. Coffee in hand. Down the school steps. Dog on leash. Past a child who stops, bends down, exclaims the dog's name, and the woman exclaims the dog's name. They are all saying the dog's name. And then I haven't done my homework. You never do. But in a laugh. Sip of coffee, then mug on desk, right on board. Another child arrives, shouts dog's name. She shouts dog's name before class. Everyone says the dog's name at least 20 times. The dog snarls at hands under his belly as the mound had protested to attempt to kiss. Is still in the house, sleeping. More coffee. Children sitting for class. Class. 1 minute to begin. She climbs the stairs, takes water. 2 children. Fills the water. Then begins. Well, that's the morning, I think, solely in action. I don't know how I feel about it. It's certainly something I think if I had more energy, if it wasn't very late at night, I'd be able to do it more. And I think if I were focusing on something different, a different time in the day, I'd be able to do it more. But what I really was trying to show about the morning is those little actions that show the weariness and the tendency not to wish to start. And I don't know. Something like it. I wonder what you guys came up with if you chose to ride along with me. But that's what I've gotten. Now I was going to do the Elizabeth Hardwick. And we were going to talk about that and do a little riding exercise, but I've grown a bit tired because I've worked all day. So we might just briefly go over it as best we can. Or perhaps we'll leave it for next time. It might be that we do running exercise for this a bit differently next time. But I encourage you to try riding merely about the present. And then perhaps we'll do the Elizabeth Hardwick in another video. Because, like I said, I'm just very tired. I hope you're tired too, that this has worked. But yeah, I think we'll go ahead and do this another day. It makes sense to do it. Perhaps I'll film it tomorrow. Perhaps we'll do that. But before we end, why don't we finish on William Carlos Williams and just read another one of his poems, just to give us something else to think about. Perhaps, let's see. Let's think about the rose. This is a beautiful poem here by William Carlos Williams, and we'll just end on this. The rose is obsolete, but each petal ends in an edge, the double facet cementing the grooved columns of air. The edge cuts without cutting, meets nothing, renews itself in metal or porcelain. I love that the beautiful flower comes back in our creations. Wither it ends, but if it ends, the start is begun, so that to engage roses becomes a geometry, sharper, neater, more cutting, figured in majolica. The broken plate glazed with a rose. Somewhere the sense makes copper roses steel roses. The rose carried the weight of love, but love is at an end of roses. If is at the edge of the petal that love waits, crisp worked to defeat, laboredness, fragile, plucked, moist, half raised, cold, precise, touching, the place between the petal's edge and from the petal's edge a line starts. That being of steel, infinitely fine, infinitely rigid, penetrates the Milky Way without contact, lifting from it, neither hanging nor pushing, the fragility of the flowers unbruised, penetrates spaces. Now sometimes this happens that I read something and I find myself with an idea, so maybe I will finish a little bit longer from this, which is from the Renews itself in metal or porcelain. I like that. So let's go. I'm just going to go back. Sometimes I find inspiration in little lines. Let's go back to filling the water. Then begins. And this might be something simple again because I'm very tired. I've already done a lot of writing today. Sometimes it can be hard when you feel empty of words. When you've taught all day and then gone to piano lessons and read and written and all that. But so let's say this final thing. 4 children, because my classes are very small, stare at the board. One clicks a pen, and the woman asks the child to stop clicking as she too is clicking. They begin to write. With some sighs, some quicker than others. The clicking goes on. Another says to stop. But no one asks it of the woman drinking coffee, then water, then coffee, doing nothing until a pen stops moving. And then she says, keep writing. Don't think. Just write. But if I don't think, I can't write. Oh, look. No more writing. Enough conversation. And the timer goes off. Same timer from the morning. Or wrong morning. The same sound. It prompted her to search her lover in the sheets, only to feel him set up his barrier. The children read. Let's see. Children read 1 one by one. And for one, they are all amazed. There. And like they all repeated the dog's name. They repeat the name of the child who read with wow added on. Leaves, he smiles at another. His way, and this child smiles back, and on the smile goes as if possessing a motor powered the child's name. And how wow had gone with it. The smile leaping from face to face. No telling, really, when it might end. If it can last in the night, through dreams, it might live a very long time. Alright, I think that's enough for me tonight. I hope that you got some writing done if you decided to. And if you did, please share if you feel you can. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video and that it made you a little bit sleepy. I've been very busy, so I'm trying to stay consistent as best I can, but I apologize if I haven't, or if my videos feel rushed. I just want to make sure that I get something for you. So thank you again, and have a wonderful, wonderful night.